So, anybody else have any smart thoughts before we actually start this?
I'm just trying to find a football stream. I'm failing miserably.
Yeah, don't pay attention to us. That's cool. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Sass Cast. This is episode 7. See, I actually knew this time, guys. Smart. Today we got Al. I didn't actually introduce anybody on the last episode because it was kind of a emergency episode talking about the PlayStation 5 and Spider-Man and stuff like that. But today's a normal episode, so I can actually introduce people. We got the Predator, Al Tribesman, to my left. Down bottom left-hand corner, we have Kumail, who has a face cam, who showed us that he has a face cam, and now he refuses to use it because
I'm cleaning my room. Leave me alone.
That's a great excuse, Kumail. And
You'll
down
see next week.
right below, we've got Ben at Please Be Excited, who may or may not stick around. I don't know.
I wasn't even meant to be here today.
Nope, but you're here now, so. So we were kind of debating on what to talk about, and it kind of landed on next gen stuff, I guess. Why we're excited for it, and Al also wanted to bring up how'd you put it?
What constitutes
what constitutes it being an actual next generation leap, which is going to be kind of interesting to get into. So before we actually kind of get into the nitty gritty on why I think, or what I think specifically means for next generation, I kind of want to hear your guys' takes on what you've heard next gen be touted as. Al, let's start with you.
As far as like what I've heard, it's basically just faster load times, ray tracing, which is basically the same kind of graphic. In my brain, it's just the same kind of graphics, but with more sort of detail and reflections. But I'm not going to get into why I don't think that's enough. We'll move on to that. But to me, that's what it seems like. It seems like the same looking graphics, but just polished up. Extra resolution, higher resolution, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Kumail, how about you?
I think echoing what Al said, but also keeping in mind that games will be able to run at higher frame rates than we've been previously used to. So like with God of War, instead of me having to pick between high resolution graphics and then a 60 frames per second sort of option, I can have both in one with next generation. So that's what next gen means to me.
Absolutely. Ben, since you're here, what do you think next gen means or is going to be?
I think it's just going to be a lot of quality of life improvements.
Okay.
For me personally, what excites me is probably just the talk of like little things. The fact that you can actually suspend your game, go to another game, play that game, come back and pick up exactly where you left off. So
right.
I think it's going to be one of those things where how you go back to the old PS3 and you like remember the console fondly, and you're like, oh, this UI is not great, and man, it's really really slow, and
it has to actively count
feels weird.
The size of games. I wanted to see how big a game was last time I was on my PS3. And when you go to information, it literally says counting for like 2 minutes before it finally tells me that this game is 7.9 gigs. Yeah.
Everything takes 5 hours. So
yeah, pretty much.
So I think it's going to be the little quality of life improvements, other than what obviously Al and Kumail said there, especially about the, the high-res textures, the better frame rates. I think it's just going to be the little things that make a big difference. So.
Okay. So I, as someone who does work on games to an extent, am very excited for many things. Obviously, having more power for ray tracing, high resolution, higher frame rates, stuff like that. Having the amount of power that you can easily push 4K textures or 8K textures if you really need to, which is totally unnecessary for most things, but you could. The biggest thing is the SSD. Fast load times is awesome. I love fast load times, but the real reason having a solid state drive is going to be the defining factor of next generation is not enough people talk about this. This has been spoken about before, but it's the fact that it's going to fundamentally change the way people design games for many reasons. One thing, since SSDs don't have seek times, if you have to find a piece of data, it can find it like that. You don't have to double up, triple up, quadruple up on assets and place them in different places of the hard drive because of how slow the hard drive is. Like they use Spider-Man as a good example where like a single mailbox, that exact same asset is duplicated dozens of times on the hard drive because it needs to be able to show up in all these different neighborhoods throughout the city. And if you only have that asset in one place, every time you enter a different area, it's going to have to spin up that hard drive and try to find that one single asset by just digging through that entire hard drive, which takes a long time. Whereas an SSD, it can literally just go, where is it? There it is. Boom, it's in the game. So you're probably going to see condensed down file sizes, which is pretty nice. Call of Duty Modern Warfare probably won't be 200 gigs anymore. It might be 100 gigs because they won't have to duplicate stuff. But the really big thing is how it's going to change the level design. So the way games are designed as far as levels and streaming goes is complicated. The best example I can give is Destiny and Destiny 2. If you're playing Destiny and Destiny 2 on your stock console's hard drive and you're riding your Sparrow going to a specific area, there are multiple points in that game where you'll all of a sudden stop and see this little loading icon. It'll stop you in your tracks and load because it's still trying to stream in the next block of data, which is why...
Oh, damn, I didn't realize that was the reason why it did that.
Yeah, it's because
I thought it was lag.
It has to reload all that data. So transitions in game levels usually look like this. They look like a maze. They funnel you around different corridors and corners to mask the loading. So even though you only have to go from point A to point B, it's going to funnel you around this area just so it has time to load that data. That's why you see in games like Jedi Fallen Order all those times where you're just slowly slogging through a crevice. It's because it has to load the next section. But if you're literally able to find your data in an instant, that's the only path you need. So instead of spending 45 seconds going through a bunch of corridors or down pathways that have nothing, there's nothing there aside from just extra areas for you to go to high loading times, you can literally just be point A, point B in a few seconds. And that's something that you can, if you really pay attention to the way games are designed, you can start to see that in almost any game that you play. You'll notice, oh, I'm literally just being funneled through this area. I'm not actually doing anything important. Or Final Fantasy VII Remake, how almost every lever you pull, you have to hold triangle for like 4 seconds before you actually pull it, because it's
right.
trying to load. I don't know. So I'm not going to. This isn't going to be me raging shitting on Final Fantasy VII. This is me actually looking at it.
It's not just Final Fantasy VII either.
I honestly don't
games
understand why it does that, because games like Days Gone, big open world, same engine, has everything right there, whereas Final Fantasy VII, more linear game, has to do these weird hidden loading screens to allow it to stream in data, which is very strange. But it's little things like that, things like quality of life things like Ben was bringing up, fast travel. Fast travel isn't very fast. If you fast travel in The Witcher 3 on a stock hard drive, it's like from one world space to the next. I think Digital Foundry clocked it in at like a minute 15, just sitting there on the load screen. But if you have an SSD in your console or on a PC, it's 20 seconds or 30 seconds. Whereas the newer SSDs coming in the consoles, it's going to be 5 seconds, where it's like, I need to load in this entire game, and it's just like that. You don't have to worry about clicking play game, and then you wait for it to boot for 10 seconds. Then you're in the main menu, you hit start game, and it takes 45 seconds for it to load. It's just right there. So there's a lot of things that SSD is going to do, but the main two things that I think actually quantify next gen are going to be the change in level design, being able to say the player just needs to go here, so the player's just going to go there. We don't have to mask loading times, and also being able to, not have to duplicate assets, so you can conserve space and say, if our game's going to be 100 gigs, it's actually going to be 100 gigs of original content instead of 60 gigs of original content and 40 gigs of duplicated assets to help in the streaming.
So I've got a question just based off what you're saying. So will this effectively make things easier for developers and make them spend less time on, having to do all this masking and whatnot, and be able to actually put more content into the game? Or
Oh, absolutely.
design new areas and stuff like that?
Absolutely. Like, it's going to cut down level design times drastically, where now developers can actually design a level the way they want to design it. They don't have to design a level and go, okay, well, when we get to this point, the game freezes for 5 seconds because it's trying to load in the next area. So we now have to go back and rearrange the pathway to make sure the player takes longer to get there so it can load in. This can be, you just make the level you want to make. You don't have to worry about all that technical bottlenecks you have to deal with when it comes to how ridiculously slow hard drives are. So, in theory, yes, I think it's going to make it a lot easier for developers, and honestly, probably a lot less frustrating.
An easy example would be like what Silent Hill did with the fog back in the PS1 days.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, not having to do, for example. Like
Yeah.
rerouting your path, not having to do that to hide the loading times or whatever.
Exactly. And you see that all the time too. Like, even if you look at something like Grand Theft Auto Online, every time you enter your apartment or something, it plays a cutscene. That cutscene is not skippable because it's technically masking a load time. When in theory, if you wanted to on an SSD, it's like, I need to go to my apartment of the game or go to my garage and pick a new car. You could just say skip cutscene and you're instantly in there. But right now, because it's on a hard drive, it has to try to find that one single asset that's the garage or apartment that it's using, load that in, and then you try to leave and it has to reload the world. So there's a lot of things you'll notice in games that have like these weird hidden tricks to load in next bits of data that are going to be gone.
But my question to you, Gage, is... Sorry, go ahead, come on.
Oh, I was just gonna make a shit joke by saying some of us are really excited to skip cutscenes very quickly in the next generation.
Only if they're in bad games.
I'll go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, I don't know if we want to get into this part of it now, but do you think, Gage, as someone who's worked on video games, do you think that not having to jump through these hoops constitutes a generational leap, as opposed to something like the PS4 Pro, like a what do they call it, incremental upgrade or whatever?
This specifically, yes. If we were just talking about like
Why would you?
because it's actually changing the way games are designed. If we were just talking like ray tracing or something, I would call that incremental, because the games themselves are going to be fundamentally the same. The only difference is the lighting is better reflections, better shadows, stuff like that. It's kind of like if you go from like San Andreas on the PS2 to Grand Theft Auto 4 on PS3, the only major difference, honestly, is polygon count and texture resolution and lighting. Like, that's it. They changed the controls, but fundamentally those games are designed almost identically. Big open worlds, third person, but the way the game is made didn't really change. It was just a visual upgrade. Same with if you look at like Call of Duty 3 on... I know Call of Duty 3 came out on the PlayStation 3 generation, but if you look at it on the Xbox and PlayStation 2 compared to the next generation with Call of Duty 4, again, you're looking at the same exact game design, same exact gameplay, you're just looking at prettier graphics. Whereas going from like the PS1 to the PS2, or you know, the 2D 8-bit era, 16-bit era to the 3D era, those were generational leaps because those were able to actually fundamentally change the way games were made. You didn't just have like Medal of Honor on the PS1 where you're having to use your shoulder buttons to look up and look down, and you're going through these super linear areas where there's 2 or 3 enemies, to the PlayStation 2 where it's like, oh, now there's 40 enemies in this large open area and you're storming the beach of Normandy and stuff like that. It's similar in every way, but they were able to expand it enough that it kind of made it feel next generation. Whereas I think the SSD in this is going to do that, because that SSD is going to allow things you cannot do on a hard drive, which is going to be interesting to see games get these new design elements and have straight shot areas instead of all these weird corridors to mask loading, because there's going to be a lot of people probably still playing games on a PC with a hard drive, and they're going to hit those Destiny-like areas where they're walking down this forest and then all of a sudden they just stop, and this little loading icon pops up and stays there for 30 seconds because they're trying to load all this data, but it's stuck on a hard drive, so it's going to cause them to do this, whereas the SSD is not going to have that issue. So I think the SSD would constitute next gen, whereas if we were just looking at the visuals, I would say it's more just of an incremental upgrade. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out, though. To see what people who are actually in the industry actually say about it. I mean, there's already people that are gushing over the SSD and saying stuff like that. I know Naughty Dog was talking about that, or someone from Naughty Dog was talking about how crazy it was using the PlayStation 5's SSD compared to everything they've done before. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they change the way their games are made to take advantage of this new tech.
So correct me if I'm wrong, does that mean that Resident Evil 4 and the leap that Capcom took from going from these pre-rendered backgrounds
Oh, you just had to. You just had
to an open world 3D world and not relying on the animation of the doors opening for you to load to the next room
It's kind of like that.
is what helped
Yes.
turn Resident Evil into like an open, not an
Yes.
open world, but like a 3D world
Yeah.
that's fully rendered.
Yeah. That's a good example, because you're kind of looking at the same thing there, where not only do they get that visual technology upgrade where they're now able to fully render in 3D and you're actually able to move the camera and look at everything. But yeah, like when you go inside a building in Resident Evil 4, you just press the button, the door opens, and you walk in. Whereas the PS1, it actually had to have that loading time to load the next room. Same with like Metal Gear Solid. When you're going through the vents, there's certain vents where you go through, all of a sudden it just starts pulling you through and it fades to black. And then it loads you into a new section. Like the very first vent you go into when you're entering the base, you get 6 feet into it and it does that. And that's kind of allowing it to take a second and reload the next area because it can't easily transition between those two. Something like
Makes
that
sense.
wouldn't exist, where it's like it's all just going to be connected now, which is pretty cool.
I've got a question in relation to game engines.
Yeah, sure,
And
go for it.
Unreal 5. So, is it correct to say that something like Unreal 5 would not be able to be supported on current hardware and only on next-gen hardware, or what's the situation with that?
Unreal 5 is still far enough away as far as like, I know certain studios are getting access to it, but Unreal 5 is not available for everyone. It's only studios.
Godfall, for
are able to
example,
get
is
it.
one that's using Unreal 5 at
Yeah.
the moment, supposedly.
Unreal 5 theoretically can still be scaled back to use current gen, but honestly, I don't think any studio using Unreal 5 is going to develop for current gen. Because they're going to be taking advantage of all these extra features like the ray tracing and the automatic log system that will automatically reduce the triangle count of assets, so you no longer have to make 7 versions of the same thing that are lower in quality each time. It just does all that stuff for you. They can just make their game and they'll be like, it's out. They're not going to make their game use all these things in 2 or 3 years and then go, well, what if we scale it back and make it uglier and put it out on 10-year-old hardware? I think 5 is far enough out, we're not going to see that used on current gen hardware. Because
Cool.
at that point, I think it would be kind of pointless. I mean, to be fair, Ubisoft still puts out Just Dance on the Wii U. So,
The Wii, not even Wii U, Wii.
oh yeah, it was on Wii, dude. That was working at Best Buy was weird because we literally carried Just Dance like 2018 on the Wii. It's the only Wii game that the company still carried. It was...
You've got to respect it, you just got to respect it.
No, I don't.
So, Al, are you hesitant to jump into next gen based on what your impression of what next gen is at the moment?
Up until finding out that it's gonna change the way games are being developed, yes, I thought of it as just like an incremental upgrade, to be honest. I could justify better hardware to load it faster, better hardware, more power to, I don't know,
after
have that ray
having that,
tracing.
after having that quasi sort of religious experience when upgrading to a PlayStation 4 Pro, I was halfway through Horizon, and then I had the PlayStation 4 Pro, and I was like, the way the game looked sort of different on my TV. That alone, I was just like, whoa,
Dude.
this is crazy.
I upgraded to a PS4 Pro when I was still using my 32-inch 1080p TV. So I couldn't take advantage of the HDR, I couldn't take advantage of the 4K native resolution, but with the super sampling, I just remember booting up Skyrim for the first time on my Pro, and it being natively rendered at 4K. All those Xbox losers out there are going to talk shit about it. Yes, Skyrim runs at a native 4K resolution on PS4 Pro. Just saying.
You can find him on @GF2Cool on Twitter.
I'm
Do
just
not
talking
at
about
the rest of us.
Xbox
At
assholes.
Xbox fan.
There's PlayStation assholes out there too. Most of the fans of Xbox are cool, and I like them. But
Okay,
it's
fair
those assholes that were spreading that information about PlayStation 5 is struggling to hit 4K. They're gonna have to use fake 4K. And like 2 days later, the guy who posted it was like, "Sorry, I lied." Yet people are still running with that story. It's pathetic.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
just seeing that scaled down to 1080p was a game changer because it still made everything look sharper, and it was really cool. And then jumping up to actual 4K with HDR and playing Horizon was like, how is just that slight increase to pixel count and the HDR? I was just like, I'm blown away at like that. Almost felt next gen as much as what I assume the PlayStation 5 is going to feel like, even though it was literally the same console that was just a bit more powerful.
A bit bigger.
Yeah, a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I don't think we're gonna see the full capabilities of what the next gen's gonna be for probably a couple years, because there's still a lot of games being developed for multiple generations. Like Spider-Man Miles Morales, we're probably gonna see. It's an open world game, so we're gonna see faster load times and maybe a smaller file size because it doesn't have to duplicate stuff. But really, that game's
seen screenshots of it as well, how it looks compared to like PS4 version, PS5.
Yeah, that game is just going to be the visuals. It's not really going to show off the power of the SSD aside from load times. It's going to be more focused on this is what games can look like and run at 4K at 60 FPS with some level of ray tracing, or you can do it at 30 FPS with higher quality ray tracing, or however they decide to break that up. Same with like Demon Souls. I expect that's probably going to be a spring game, and that's going to be another thing where it's just going to be visual, because the original game, you were much like kind of how the Dark Souls games have it. You're in your shrine area, and you go to I forgot what they call them. They weren't like portals, but they would transport you. So you'd go there, and it would transport you to the level, because PS3 hardware, hard drive, cell processor, RAM speeds, motherboard speed, all that shit made it so with that game, they couldn't have a flowing open world. The remake on PS5 is probably going to be the same thing. They're not going to go, we have an SSD so we can actually make it a big open world. It's probably still going to be level-based, because that's just how the original game was. Whereas...
Have they already started development?
Oh, I think they started developing Demon Souls like 2 years ago. Like, that's when it started being rumored. Like, it's been rumored for years. And it was just officially announced at the PlayStation 5 reveal.
Yeah, because we didn't see too much from that reveal either.
But they showed a lot, though. Like, all those things they showed were from, like, different levels in the game, so they might be pretty far.
Okay.
And I think, like, probably maybe 2022 we're going to start seeing games fully take advantage of it. Like, Dark Souls 4 or Bloodborne 2 or Elden Ring, maybe. Although I think it's still going to be current gen as well. It's going to be, like, in... I guess with all those games, there were broken up sections. Like, you'd have your big open areas in those games, but there'd be certain places that you get teleported to, and they're different world spaces. Whereas on the PlayStation 5's SSD, those could all theoretically be interlinked, and you wouldn't have to be like, okay, here's massive world chunk 1, but when you get to this point, the character will teleport you to the next world chunk, and you have to fast travel between them. It'll just be, you walk through a door and you're in the next world. Or Witcher 3, literally 2 of the locations are side by side, but you cannot cross the border. You have to fast travel, because it has to unload all of this and reload all of this. They can just make an open world and just say, hey, it's there. Skyrim, you don't have to enter a city anymore because the city is just part of the open world. They don't have to load in a separate space. So there's going to be a lot of changes in games, but it's going
Does
to
that
be
mean
a
the
while.
bucket will disappear, or will the bucket still stay there forever, like it normally does?
Dude, I hope
Star.
that exploit persists throughout their games.
Benny, what are your thoughts on all this? Are you going to be adopting straight
Forgot
away,
Ben was
or are
here,
you
honestly.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna be a day one. But I am
Yeah.
gonna miss load times. Like, I'm probably the only person that's gonna miss that. But I kind of like that period that takes you a little bit out of the game, so you can actually
what work on work emails? Is that why?
check your messages, work on your photoshops, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna miss that. I don't know if anyone else is going to, but
I'll miss him for like moments. It's like
Yeah.
like when I play a PS1 game or a PS2 game, it's like, oh, this is so nostalgic, like having to go through a menu and it's like access memory card and it's like, okay, loading,
Yeah.
loading, slot 1 or slot 2, slot 1, loading. Okay, there, load the game. It's like, okay, loading. Like, it's cool for a moment, and then it's like, right, we don't have to deal with this anymore. I'm done.
I wonder if it's going to like break your mind, because I remember with Pokemon, the sort of 2D games, it took ages for it to save. And I can't remember if it was like the 6th generation when it was 3D. But when I went to go save the game, it literally took like half a second, and I was like, hang on a minute, did it save properly? And it took me ages to get used to the fact that it just saves
No,
way quicker than it used to.
I've been spoiled by Bethesda because in Fallout 4 they introduced quick save. So it used to be on my PS3, I'd have to pause it, go to save, and it would have to load for a second. It'd bring up the PlayStation 3 saves, go in, hit new save. Are you sure? Yes. Take a few seconds, then it would load or save it, and then I could back out, unpause the game, keep playing. Fallout 4, I could literally hit the options button, hit X, and it would instantly quick save and close the menu so I could continue playing. That also carried over to the remaster of Skyrim. So it's like there's already things like that where there's no save times. I just hit quick save and the game does everything for me and I can just keep playing. The big thing
I think
is,
developers might still have those screens where after your ass kicked by a boss, like
little
here's a tip
hint
for you,
screens, but
not necessarily for loading, but they might
Yeah,
keep that in there.
it's gonna be like
which I
here's
appreciate.
it's gonna be up for 3 seconds until you're able to skip it, but then you can skip it whenever you want after that. So you can keep reading the hint, or you can just instantly respawn and try to fight the boss. Because, dude,
Or even just turn off the hints.
if a From Software game didn't have hints after you get killed by a boss, I would never play them. Because it's like, maybe you should try using ice magic on this guy, and it's like, oh, I didn't think of that. And then I kill them, and it's like, oh my god, ice magic.
Use water magic on the fire Charizard.
I think one
Very
thing we
good.
haven't talked about, which excites me as well, is the little things like obviously the controller, what 3D audio sounds pretty exciting as well. But
Yeah.
even that the cheesy sounding haptic feedback, I think is something that I'll be right into.
Oh my god,
the fact
yes.
But
What
isn't
do they keep
haptic
using,
feedback
like the
something
drawing
that could
bow
just
example?
work on like a PlayStation 4 because you could just design the DualShock 5 for PlayStation 4, surely? Or am I thinking this wrong?
What do you mean?
Because
Like,
it's to do with the controller itself, isn't it? More than anything.
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
It
it's
is.
the actual controller hardware,
Yeah.
yeah.
You could just use it for like a PlayStation 4. Well, they could have designed it for the PlayStation 4, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
3D audio, I
but-
can understand being something brand new that they probably couldn't have designed.
That would be strange
for,
though. Like
current
that's kind of like with the Xbox Elite controller. It's like, why would you put out this new generation controller for more money when we're already halfway through the generation that has a handful of extra things? I mean, sure, if you're always playing Warzone or something, like I bought the back button attachments for my DualShock, and it's like, it's cool, but that cost me $20. I wouldn't want to.
That's how you get those dubs. Now we finally know.
Yeah. But I feel like developers wouldn't have been too happy if PlayStation would have been like, hey, check this out. And then they go to all of these developers and it's like, we want you to put this in the game. So now all these studios have to go back to their old games and try to somehow implement this. I mean, you could do
It
the
would
same
be
thing
better
about...
than asking developers to go back to last gen's controllers, like the Move controllers.
To be fair,
Oh god.
with VR it makes sense.
Can we just get like normal VR controllers now, please, God? I'm fed up of having to have those. It's not even UB. I've got the old ones, so there's no USB-C for them. So I have to get the old USB, put it in there. Oh god.
I'm
Oh,
sure they're gonna have better controllers for the next VR headset. Like, Kind of like
I
the
wonder-
Oculus
this
Rift had
headset-
analog sticks, which is cool. So
Are you talking shit about the Move controllers, Kumail?
Yes, I am talking shit about Move controllers.
Dude, come on now.
Somebody boo this man.
I like them. I mean, they're definitely dated, and I do like, the Rift controllers
Just knowing
more.
what's in the market, it would be nice to have like an alternative. And I'm not talking like a gun attachment, just something like a glove, you know?
Oh, we'll get there eventually. Don't worry about that.
Hopefully.
Eventually.
And do you think that next generation as well for VR, because Sony's carrying over
Look,
their VR
Kumail.
next generation?
Look, Kumail. I don't know too much about VR or no VR controller. Hey, there he is.
God.
But if my time in Firewall Zero Hours taught me anything, it's that this guy is awesome. Even with the aim drift.
So with the haptic feedback, so I guess one thing that, like I say, it kind of excites me is thinking about how developers can use that. And I guess one thing is that I was thinking is like, imagine an RPG, right, where you're swinging your sword at the start, it's really heavy. Like when you actually, swipe R2 to actually, attack people, it's really heavy at the start. But as you level up and power up and get stronger, it gets like, less and less actual feedback on it when you press it. That kind of thing would be pretty cool, actually. So like your level 1 character,
and they have like
very different to a level 50.
Yeah, they have like that feedback and resistance in the triggers supposedly, so it could be, it's harder to pull the trigger with a certain weapon when you're not skilled enough. So if you have to swing a claymore, you have to pull back on the trigger a bit harder because you don't know how to use it. But as your character gets better, it lessens the resistance on it, so you could just start spamming that sucker when you're level 20. So there's definitely some cool
That sounds super cool.
potential gameplay elements they could put in.
The stuff that can actually do it, I know it sounds gimmicky, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of those things that developers are just going to really lean into and have some fun.
Dude, I can't wait to see what Bethesda does for it with Elder Scrolls 6. Just being able to, I'm so stoked for that.
Can develop games, Gage. Like, obviously, for what you're working on, or what you're planning on working on, what kind of things do you think we might see with haptic feedback? Like, what would you put into your games that you think could be quite a cool idea? What excites you about it?
I think a pretty cool one would be like, I'm surprised games there's got to be a game that already does this on current gen controllers, but I can't think of one. But imagine playing a horror game, and as like the horror elements start happening and you start getting scared and your character starts getting scared, and you start like hearing your character's heartbeat, you feel your controller start to pulse along with the heartbeat, just to kind of give that extra added tension. Or something like depending on how many.
Dawn, for example, that was very
Yeah.
when we used it, it was really cool.
Or imagine depending on, I'm assuming there's a lot of different motors in there. They've probably got motors, obviously like the DualShock has one on each handle. They've probably got more. Imagine playing a game where that's almost synced up to sound. So if something loud happens on your right-hand side, like a artillery shell hits and explodes, not only does the 3D audio make it sound like it's right next to you, but now the right side of your controller vibrates. So now you actually feel that explosion happen next to you, instead of just a general both motors go off at the same time. They could actually try to make it where they can target each individual piece of that controller to give you different physical feedback depending on what's happening around you, which I think could be pretty interesting. Or like what the Xbox's triggers do now, where if I'm playing Forza and the right tires start going off road, now the right trigger starts to vibrate. The left trigger doesn't because it's still on asphalt, but now that right trigger starts vibrating until I get back on the road. So there's a lot of cool things that DualSense could do just to kind of help immerse you in that world a bit more and make it feel more like it's actually happening around you instead of just on the TV in front of you.
Now, Gage, would you consider the Switch a console that's of the same generation as the PS4 and the Xbox One?
No. If we're talking
So how is it not an improvement with what they're doing with counting the whatever that was?
Because that should happen on the Wii. Remember the Wii? When it's like, oh, you can do this and that and it counts shit. Or the fucking DS where it's like, name your dog and you're like, bitch. And it's like, please say that again. Bitch. Sorry, didn't hear you. Dog. Please repeat. Fuck. Or blow on Mario Party. You have to blow into the microphone for shit to happen. So I think if we're talking...
But that new Rumble... Go ahead.
Okay, I'll give them the Rumble. That is pretty cool. But no, I would not put them on the
HD
same generation.
baby.
As a console, they're previous generation. As a handheld, they're on another level.
But now you're referring to quality of life things like the DualSense as a move forward, a step forward towards the next generation. But when Nintendo was doing
If
it with their
Nintendo
Rumble,
could push their fucking console beyond goddamn 540p for fucking Valkyria Chronicles or whatever it is, then
For fuck's
no,
sake,
no,
Gage.
I'm just talking shit. No, you have it.
Xenoblade Chronicles.
Sure,
Thank you.
You're absolutely right. What they did with the Rumble feature.
Just move on. God damn it.
I'm trying to be
I'm
nice
getting
now, and you're
triggered.
stopping me, so I'm just not going to say anything nice about Nintendo. Fuck Nintendo. There, Kumail.
No, go ahead. Continue that thought, please, Gage.
I was gonna
really
say
interested.
I'm just talking shit. You're actually absolutely right. I think the Rumble feature in the Joy-Cons is really cool. I think they could probably do a bit more with it. It doesn't seem like it's used as much as it was like in the first year of development, but that's cool. Like that's really cool technology. How they touted it, where it's like you can do this and you can feel each individual ice cube in the glass, and it's like it's kind of how it feels. It's
It was
actually
ice
super
cubes,
accurate.
Right.
So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm referring to when it comes to like how the DualSense could work if it has a bunch of different motors throughout the controller that could give you actual precise feedback instead of it just being a generalized. You shoot your gun, the whole thing vibrates. But yeah, Nintendo did a good job with that.
It'll be interesting to see how that game, The Pathless, where it's that lady with the bow and stuff, how that sort of works with haptic feedback.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see.
Are you talking about Horizon?
No. There was this game that was shown off not too long ago called The Pathless, and it's kind of like, it's just this woman with her bow, and you just constantly shoot off arrows and stuff.
Oh, that sounds cool, dude.
Yeah,
I'll send you the video.
it looks cool.
I know they've kind of used that example to death, the bow, but that's kind of, I mean, there are a lot of bows in video games, and that is something that would be really cool. That was like feeling that feedback when you're drawing the bow, and then
For me, like playing like Monster Hunter, I mean, I'm really excited for next generation because the load times between sort of like getting from the main hub area to your mission and stuff like that, it takes like maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and so
Yeah.
it just adds up, and it'll be nice not to have that. But also, like Gage was saying, with the weapons in that game, we've got so many different weapons. It'll be really cool to have, like me, a dual blades user who I might be using my left arm, my right arm in different sort of patterns to be able to feel that resonate with my controller. But just like you said, make me feel more immersed in the game.
Yeah. So you use hand-to-hand combat. You throw a right punch, the right side of the controller vibrates. You throw a left punch, the left side vibrates. Just small things like that to kind of make it feel a bit more immersive. I think would be really neat to see.
imagine that example, right? Your hand swinging through the air when you're hitting R2 to punch, and it's really loose at the start, but when it actually makes contact with someone's face, that it actually kind of, you get feedback at that point. That would be pretty cool, dude.
Yeah, that'd be really neat. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things they could do with that controller, just based off of the, I don't know, semi-limited information we have about it. And they told us a lot, but I feel like we haven't had enough examples on how everything's going to take advantage of it, because it's just, when you pull the bow back, you're going to feel the resistance of the string, and it's like, cool. What else can it do? Like, clearly there's going to be a lot of other cool shit with it, but it's just there haven't been any, like, Resident Evil 8. I'm curious to see if they're going to take advantage of the DualSense with Resident Evil 8, be it with the impact of gunshots or punches or directional audio cues or something. Like when you get close to a hint, the controller will start to vibrate in the direction of the thing you're trying to find or something. So it's like, okay, now like the top right of the controller, so I need to turn this way. Okay, now the center of the controller, it must be straight ahead. Like, it's be interesting to see how it actually gets used based on what they've kind of told us about it.
I'd love like a basketball game where when you dribble with R2, you hit the button, and like, so when you got the ball in your hand, it's obviously a little bit more resistant. When as it leads, it loosens up a little bit. That would be cool too. Like, just
That would be
the cool,
interesting.
crazy stuff that some of these developers are going to do with it. It's just super exciting to me.
Yeah, it's
Or
gonna be
like
really
when
cool
you-
to see that.
When you hit like a pitch, hit a home run or hit it to like first base or hit a ground and stuff like that. How that would...
Yeah.
100% dude.
Oh, I want it
Do you
now. I
think
want it
that's
to
too
go now.
ambitious? Just like when we got excited about the Wii.
Yeah,
and thought
probably.
that it could replicate a one-to-one sword swing and it was absolutely not that.
Well, I think I was thinking that at the start as well, but I think that seems to be one of the big things a lot of developers are talking about is the haptic feedback, and they actually seem genuinely excited about some of the stuff that they can actually do. And I think that goes a long way with when they're talking about it in that kind of fashion. Normally, if it's a gimmick, like let's be honest, like so for example on the Vita with the touchpad, like other than maybe little deviants, like
and the
not many
camera.
developers were sort of toting that. Hey, look, we can do so much cool stuff with this
Uncharted, baby. Uncharted.
Hold your camera up to a light source to decode this message, and it's like, bro, it's fucking midnight. Like, I'm not gonna turn a goddamn light on for this. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm in bed. God. I tried using my phone. I turned the flashlight on my phone and put it right up against the camera, and it didn't fucking work. I go out to the living room, turn on a lamp, and it worked instantly. I'm like, this bright ass LED didn't do shit, but oh god, that was so stupid. God damn it, Ben. Why'd you have to fuck me on that?
Lead you down that dark path.
But they gave us Days Gone, so we're good.
Yeah, but I think other than the actual performance improvements that they're talking about, they can do a lot more on the system. The second thing that I seem to be hearing from them is the haptic feedback is actually really cool and not necessarily a gimmick. And some of them giving examples about, like, obviously it seems to be mostly the bow, but I think when a lot of them sort of sit down and play around with it, there's some really cool stuff that they could actually do. You know, if anyone wants
Rhythm
to help
games as
consult
well.
on this stuff, just hit me up. You know, I've got some great ideas about how you can implement it. Hit me up, but please be excited on Twitter. You know,
Right.
happy to do some consulting work. You know.
Yeah, it's gonna be see how much more accurate it is, because even something like I think it's Red Dead 2, you can actually, like, when you're galloping, you can actually feel the controller vibrate to the rhythm that your horse is running, which is really cool. It'd be just kind of cool to see that expanded upon in hopefully Red Dead 3, which will be another contender for Game of the Generation.
What do you think we're going to see that they haven't announced yet? They keep toting that they haven't talked about all of the consoles yet.
There's a lot of like rumors, just all these rumors and proclaimed sources that they somehow got Silent Hill. And
Whoa.
There's other people giving hints that they also got Metal Gear. So I don't for a second believe they got Metal Gear, but Silent Hill is something that, while heavily skeptical, I think they could be doing. They could be doing a Silent Hill reboot. I doubt it's Kojima's, but it could be a Silent Hill game. Also, I really hope to God they're like, hey, launch title, Twisted Metal. And it's just this brand new Twisted Metal game, takes full advantage
Destruction All Stars, Gage. Destruction All Stars.
I want Twisted Metal Battle Royale so bad, dude.
I was talking about that
You've got it.
last
You've
time we
got
were
it.
on Discord. Just imagine 100 players dropping into a massive city where you just pick your character and it's just last man standing. You're just driving
The last
around.
Twisted Metal was actually kind of like that, right? It was.
Dude, it was a good game. It was really
People
good.
Shit on it so much.
I don't know, because people were like, I feel like people shit on that the way that people shit on Mass Effect Andromeda. They saw one video online of a glitch and then automatically deemed it the worst game in history without even playing it.
It was my favorite, one of my favorite games last gen. It was awesome.
Yeah, Twisted Metal is phenomenal. It deserves a reboot or remaster. I'd play the remastered version, 100%.
Are there any sort of features that you think they're holding back though, the way they're talking?
I doubt it. I don't think so. I think it's just gonna be showing off more games. Hopefully, show off a game and actually expressly show off what it looks like normally, and then go, by the way, this is what it looks like without ray tracing. Here's what it looks like on PlayStation 5 with the ray tracing. They go boom, and it just fucking blows us away. Like, I would love to see that. Like, with Halo Infinite, no joke, that's what I thought they were going to do. I thought, this game looks good, but when are they going to say, you've been watching it on Xbox One X. Here's what it looks like on Series X. And they didn't. And it's like that would be kind of a cool review to see something that looks good. Like, okay, this looks pretty good, but I wouldn't call it next gen, and then have them be like, but wait, and then instant swap, and it's like, oh, okay, now I get it.
So while we're on Xbox, Gage, is there anything they're doing that's similar to the haptic feedback and the 3D audio that Sony's doing?
Not that I know of. I know they
So
have
3D audio, I think, is Sony sort of thing that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to express myself here, but
Xbox
I don't think
supports
Xbox
Dolby
had even
Atmos.
thought about it. Yeah.
So they've got Dolby Atmos, and they do have it this generation as well. But I think that's the closest thing they have right now. I think they're too focused on Game Pass and stuff like that than they are on anything else. It's just make the console powerful and get Game Pass out to as many people as possible, and xCloud. But I don't think they're
believe in
as
that
focused
Steam
on that.
controller, you can actually manually change the feedback though, right? Which isn't the same thing because it can't obviously change on the fly.
I
But
think so, but it's still limited. The Xbox is limited to your standard vibration and then just the control, the rumble in the triggers. But there's no like resistance or anything like that. It's just the rumble feature. So there's really no force feedback or anything like that supposedly the DualSense has. But who knows?
do you think there'll be some features that they've sort of toted about happening at launch that are just going to kind of go away quietly? Like, with the PS4, there was that initial, hey, you can download a game and actually start playing it immediately while it's downloading, which I don't think there's very few games that actually do that in a good way or do it at all for the most part. Like,
a lot of them
do
do
you
it,
think
but
there's any
it's
sort of features?
such large chunks that it's not like it was when it launched, where it's like you download the first gig, you go from there. Now it's like, cool, you want single player or multiplayer? Single player, and it's like, cool, you have to download half the game, and it's like, well, fuck.
And I feel like that sort of came later, eh? But
Yeah.
remember at launch, they're like, oh, you can do this, and you're like, oh, sweet, I'll be able to start playing immediately. And it's like, no. Or they do it where, hey, look, download and wander around our lobby area for like 3 hours while we're waiting for the game to download.
Yeah,
Battlefront did that, didn't they?
yeah, Battlefront did that. Infamous
What's up,
Second Son
Hubscape?
broke it up into 3 sections, where it's like you had your first section, which was just the town, and then your second section leading up to Seattle, and then the rest of the game was downloaded to Seattle. So
Which is actually a great way to do it. But I think
Yeah.
after that sort of just fell off completely. Or
yeah,
they did it in this very weird kind of way where I was like, I'd just rather wait for it to download.
yeah, pretty much.
But do you think there's anything that in the next gen that we're going to get that are sort of advertising that's not going to quite live up to the hype, or that's
8K.
sort of going to go away? 8K?
8K. There, anybody touting 8K is a fucking moron. I'm just gonna put it out there, dude. We were selling an 8K TV. This thing looked barely better than a 4K at 75 inches. It took a 75 inch for the 8K to look a bit better than our 4K TVs, and it was like 5 times the price. Nobody in their right mind is gonna buy a goddamn 8K TV for a next gen console that theoretically isn't actually playing games at 8K. It just supports an 8K video output. Look,
Do you know what excites me about
nothing
8K,
is
though,
8K. Nothing. Your fucking 4K Blu-rays are usually anywhere from 1440p to 1800p. Not even those are 4K. If you stream, you're not streaming in 4K. That's all lower resolution, 1440p, 1660p, 1800p. Highly compressed down. 8K is a dumbass thing to be toting on your console or trying to get people to buy into, because shit can't even hit 4K yet. Like, it doesn't make sense for 8K to be a thing.
And people are not going to be able to buy 8K for quite some time. It's going to take a few
People aren't
years.
going to be able to buy 4K right now.
Eventually they'll be the norm.
Well,
I
4K
agree
is
with
pretty cheap.
all of
these
this.
days.
But COVID,
But
you know,
wasn't
Oh,
Sony
yeah.
touting? Wasn't Sony touting 8K in that Wired article the very first time they spoke about the PS5 hardware?
I think so. I
So
think
they
they were.
said we have 8K capabilities.
Yeah, and it's also like on their official page on their website, it says 8K video output or 8K support or whatever. And it's like,
Do you
You
think
know what
that's
it seems
just
like to
future-proofing
me?
for like 10 years?
it's just weird future proofing that's not even going to be fully
It could be
used.
being used as a buzzword as well, just to attract certain people.
Now they also tout 8K textures, which again
Yeah.
is pointless. Like 8K, unless your texture is a single 1-to-1 ratio on a massive building, you don't need 8K. 4K is good enough. Hell, 2K is good enough for most shit. So saying we can do 8K textures, it's like, good for you. Why? That is like a single 4K texture on like a character's skin just for their face is like 55 megabytes of RAM usage. 8K is, oh my god, like what, 4 times that? Something like that? If not
I
more?
appreciate it though in the sense
ridiculous.
that like as I get older, my eyesight gets worse. So every 5 years, it's nice to have a bit of a visual upgrade, so I can actually keep up with it.
It's the thing though, it's like you're not gonna see it though.
You
Like,
see those sweet Dragon Quest Builders blocks in 8K.
Oh, dude,
and
they're gonna look so
don't
good.
worry.
Imagine the ray tracing in Dragon Quest Builders too.
I don't
Imagine
even
Rogue
want to
Legacy
imagine.
2.
My
Oh, I
god,
can't-
that's gonna be cool.
Well,
I can't wait for that.
Is that
game.
going to be delayed? Do we think it's going to be delayed? Because
It was delayed.
Good thing it's not a
Alright.
launch title.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they've officially announced PS4, sadly, all 5 at the moment, but it's coming. It's coming.
It's gonna be hard running Rogue Legacy 2 on a hard drive, that's for sure.
Oh man, that's going to be a big download, you know. What you said about
Josh will
the smaller
be able to
file
play it in 2
sizes
years.
excites me. Smaller file sizes, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But is that still the same? Obviously, they'll have probably high resolution texture packs and things
Yeah.
like that take up space. Do you think it'll just kind of even out, or do you think they'll actually be smaller?
Some things might be a bit smaller, but I think we're gonna see a lot of like the same sizes, but it's actually gonna be used properly instead of just duplicates. And it's actually gonna be this game's 100 gigs on PS4 and 100 gigs on PS5, but the PS5 version is
Better.
100 gigs because it's actually using high resolution assets.
It kind of
instead
reminds me of that.
duplicates.
Probably a good example of that was it Call of Duty Black, one of the Black Ops games? Do you remember this where the next gen version looked fantastic and you went to old version and they had to reuse so many assets? You like walked into a building and it was just all the same exact washing machine and there were just like 40 or 50 like washing. Do you remember this example?
I don't, but that does sound.
Like you went into like the next gen version, looked incredible, and then all these different things, and there might have been like 1 or 2 washing machines, but in the old version they had to reuse all the assets to the point where they had about 30 or 40 different washing machines. They just reused all the same assets. It just looks like some sort of
That's
you know,
awesome.
PS2 thing.
That's amazing. But yeah, that's kind of what it's gonna be.
Yeah, that's cool, dude. That excites me too.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
I get very excited, as you know.
Yes, yes you do.
But, I mean, Al, as someone that's kind of still probably not going to get one at launch, is there anything you think they could actually do to win you over? Anything that you think that you'd like that might actually convince you to get one?
I'm not sure there's. Well, I'm not anti everything that's being touted for next gen. It just
2
seems
words.
like every.
Miles Morales,
I'm good, thanks.
Demon
Or is it
Souls,
going to PS4? Check out last week's episode.
Gran Turismo. Oh my God.
You brought it up.
Do
Actually,
you guys
Gage.
do you guys understand that at this point Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to come out on PlayStation 5?
Dude, that's awesome.
Holy
Still
shit,
gonna look
dude.
like a PS2 game.
Sorry, PlayStation 6. It's not coming out next gen.
What?
Or ever. For that
No.
fact.
So
I'm sorry.
I
Al.
think a Metal Gear. It's okay. So I think a Metal Gear or a Silent Hill on any of the consoles will take me there for sure. But
So
it
if you
seems
have
like
other games.
every. Absolutely, but it seems like Nintendo's doing their own thing that they're justifying as next gen, whatever that turns out to be. Sony's
think they might
going
be
with.
Sorry. I'll come back to my point afterwards.
Sony's going with like audio visuals or taptic feedback, and Microsoft is going with games as service or like Game Pass or xCloud. And I guess it's a matter of what do you want from the next gen, and then that's where you take it from, I think.
Isn't Sony working on tech more than just 3D audio
Absolutely.
and just yeah?
Overall
Yeah,
tech, and,
is
and games, I think. Like actual games, not just the service of games, but physical, like, hey,
But then I have a
here's
gripe
Spider-Man,
here.
here's- Yeah, go for it.
We have Miles Morales, which is on the same engine as Spider-Man. We have Horizon Zero Dawn 2, which is the same engine as Horizon and Death Stranding and all that. We have Resident Evil 8 on the RE engine.
Which, by the way,
Why did-
stands for Resident Evil Engine. I don't care what the fuck Capcom says. That does not stand for Reach for the Moon. Are you kidding me? RE? Reach for the Moon? Fuck off. Sorry again,
So,
Al.
no, I wasn't going anywhere with this, but I'm just saying these
Neither
games
was
are
I.
all
I think it was
new
very
increments of those the same games that we have on PS4 right now that we can play, and it won't look that much different. That's all I'm saying.
I think it will, though. I think Horizon
yeah.
Zero Dawn or Horizon 2 we haven't seen enough of. I feel like that's going to be an example of being an open world game. I hope that's one of the first examples we see of that SSD in motion, where it's like, look how big the world is. We're not funneling you through corridors. Even like the first game was open world, but you could just scale every cliff or every mountain. It was specific places you could climb. Everything else you had to go through corridors. I hope this is like from point A to point B, you could walk across the mountain because it doesn't have to worry about loading in the next chunk because of the SSD.
But that would mean they would have started on that architecture from scratch, from the very beginning of
Yeah,
developing that game.
I don't see it being like that, Gage. I think from Horizon, all I'm expecting is like
I don't
better
think
resolution
it's
at 60 frames per second, and that's
maybe.
enough for me to be like.
I don't know.
I'm
I don't know
all
if
in.
Horizon's that close though. I think Horizon might be like a holiday
Wasn't
2021
it
at
Q1
earliest.
2021? I'll go fact
I
check
can't remember
this,
if they
but I'm
gave a
sure
date
it's
for
Q1
that.
2021.
Like that could be one of the things because theoretically you got to think Guerrilla was probably one of the first studios that got access to the PS5 architecture. Like they're not only one of the biggest studios in the company, but their engine is used on two of the biggest PlayStation 4 exclusives with Horizon and Death Stranding. So I feel like they probably, like them, Polyphony, and maybe Naughty Dog were probably the first three studios where it's like, this is what the PlayStation 5 is going to be. We want your next game on PlayStation 5. Start developing for these specs. So that's why I think Horizon might take advantage of it. Or it's like something like Miles Morales, probably not. It's just going to be a pretty version of Spider-Man 4.
2021, no date.
Yeah, I do think Horizon might, maybe. Again, this is grain of salt speculation. It could very well be, like Al said, just kind of the same thing as the first game. I mean, not the same thing, because it's going to be
Nothing wrong
prettier.
with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all, but it might not take full advantage of the next-gen hardware, that we might see in a game coming 2 or 3 years down the line. But I'd have to
You're
see
right,
more.
because if you look at Guerrilla as a company, like obviously when you go from like the Killzone series, they went to PS4, made that big jump to Shadowfall. Like they really took advantage of that. They had that, the bigger, wider open areas, the better lighting system, all that kind of stuff. They kind of really pushed it for what they were doing at the time.
They are kind of known of kind of pushing the boundaries, because even if you look at what Kojima was able to do with that engine, like if you look at Horizon, it looks good, but if you compare it to Death Stranding, it looks like shit. Like Horizon looks good, but Death Stranding, Kojima's team at Kojima Productions, I'm assuming Guerrilla helped them as well. I want to give full credit to Kojima and his people for making the engine better. I'm pretty sure Guerrilla was helping quite a bit with it. But what they did with that engine, what it was able to push out on PS4 is ridiculous, with the same level of hardware that Horizon came out on 2 years prior or whatever. So I don't know. It is entirely possible that they might be able to do that again in such a small amount of time for the PlayStation 5. But who knows?
And to your point, if it just means that every open world RPG kind of becomes like Breath of the Wild in the sense that you can actually scale and climb every object or like fly down, or if it just means they can do stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing that excites me the most out of anything. Like if they can actually change up the gameplay so it makes it more fun and innovative, if they do some creative stuff with that, that's the thing that'll really get me in there.
Yeah. I would love to see that in more.
So I have a question,
RPGs.
Gage.
Yeah, go for it.
Would it be asking too much if, let's say, we only release the PS5 with launch games that are taking full advantage of that? Just wait it out a bit more, as opposed to releasing something like Miles Morales.
Don't think it's viable.
No, I think for most.
Remember Mario 64? Like that was a launch.
No, I was a PlayStation kid because I had taste. No, I think this will
Crash
work out.
Bandicoot?
Hey now. But
Go.
I think, I think this would be enough. I think most people, most gamers probably don't give a shit about the SSD or what it means. They know fast load times, they're cool with that. They're going to see Miles Morales and go, that looks gorgeous. I'm excited to get a PlayStation 5 because of how good it looks. And the potential that if you're a super hardcore Warzone player, what the PlayStation 5 update for that game is going to look like. Or if you're a hardcore Destiny fan, being able to play it at 60 FPS at launch. Like that. You bring up your PlayStation 5, you hook it up, you download Destiny 2, and now it's a native 4K 60 FPS, and all your shit's there. Like, there's going to be a lot, even just taking advantage of that slight, power boost that's going to be enough to get people in now, and then we'll start seeing more and more people come in later on as they start putting out games like Horizon and shit like that. But I think they're in a good spot doing what they're doing now. I think they could nail this as long as they give us more info. I'm sick and tired of not knowing anything about, every PlayStation 4 game is going to run on it at launch, and we got a little over 100 of the most popular games that are going to get updates. Cool. Clearly, that's all first-party games. Like, it would be stupid of them if they didn't put out updates for all the Uncharted games, The Last of Us games, Death Stranding, Horizon. They clearly just run it 4K 60. But fucking show us. Give me a reason to upgrade. If I'm mainly just playing games on PS4, show me why playing those same games is going to be so much better on PlayStation 5. Not that hard. Just play a goddamn highlight reel where it's like, here's all the games that at launch are going to run at native 4K 60 FPS, compared to your PlayStation 4 that only runs them at 30 FPS with a checkerboard 4K resolution. That's going to be huge too. Just knowing like, oh, these 50 games I've collected over the years that are amazing are going to be so much better on PlayStation 5. Even if I don't give a shit about Miles Morales, maybe I'm so sick and tired of Death Stranding's 2-minute load times, or like Red Dead Redemption 2's 30 FPS, and it's like, oh, I can play those at 60 FPS, and they're gonna load like that. Yeah, I'll buy the digital version for $3.99 or whatever. Maybe. Hopefully they'll give us some info. It's like 3 months away, and we still don't know shit. It's ridiculous.
Imagine the 8K
spilled
horse
water
proofing
everywhere.
technology.
What about 8K?
8K horse proofing technology and RDR free, dude.
Dude.
I've got a question. What does Nintendo's next generation look like?
It looks like the current gen. Yeah.
Thanks for the.
Hey guys, look, we can finally play Breath of the Wild in 4K. And Digital Foundry's like, actually, it's only 1440p upscaled to 4K in handheld or in docked mode, just native 1080p in handheld mode. And all the Nintendo fanboys are gonna be like, oh my god, next gen! It's like, cool, dude. Welcome to 2015, bitch.
I am super interested to see what they do, considering for how long have we had those rumors of the Switch Pro, you know? But nothing's.
I hope they don't.
Rumors for years.
I hope they don't do like a Switch Pro or something. I hope the next
Yeah,
thing.
I just want to switch to it at this point,
Just
right?
I hope whatever Nintendo puts out next, like I hope it's huge. Like,
Yeah.
love or hate Nintendo, they are not a contender. Like they're not a competitor in the console market. They make amazing
Don't think they want
games,
to do that.
but they could be. They
Yeah.
could be. Like, I think they aren't anymore because of their own failures. It's not like we don't want to be a competitors. It was, let's put out the Wii U. We'll surely win.
And that
Fuck,
was struggling to run PlayStation 3 games.
Remember
And
when
it was a winner.
Call of Duty Ghost came out on it and it didn't even have anti-aliasing? It just looked like a bunch of fucking pixels. Oh my god.
They were giving you quality of life improvements.
Like a screen on a touchpad that doesn't work if you're more than 3 feet away from the console.
I wasn't talking about the Wii U. I was talking about
Oh,
the Switch. But...
okay, yeah. The Switch, yes,
Sorry.
good console.
But yeah, so if anything, I have more respect for Nintendo after this conversation, what you enlightened me to. Because they were ahead of the game in that sense then. Giving you a console that you could do more with, as opposed to just...
Play anywhere.
Vita.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of with you where, honestly, if these consoles weren't coming out right now, like, I wouldn't be chomping at the bit for a new one. Like, I'm extremely happy with my PS4. If I had to, I could wait, like, another 5 or 10 years, really. But I'm still excited for it. Probably not as excited as the PS4 when that was coming out. That was, you know, there's so many huge changes they made with that. And I think, like I said, because it is just the little things. While I'm excited, I'm not, like I said, chomping at the bit to... I can wait as long as I need to get them, but like I said, if it was 5 or 10 years from now, I wouldn't care. I'm still happy with my PS4 the way it is. There's
I'm
nothing
just
that I
excited.
want to change much.
I'm just excited for a controller that's going to last for more than 2 hours. That's
That
going to
is
be great.
exciting. But I guess we haven't really talked about, like you said earlier, Xbox too much. But I guess the thing with Xbox is, like I said, obviously going in an extremely different direction, and that's kind of thing that excites me about them. Is like people keep talking about, like Xbox is going to be everywhere in a few years. Like it's just going to get so many more games in so many people's hands. Like it's going to be crazy to see how that all works with xCloud and what they're doing with that and their services. Like so, if you can just pretty much turn on every TV, and then all of a sudden there's a Games Pass app, and you pop in there and you can be playing Halo on your TV. Just the crazy stuff you're going to be able to do with that in the future is insane. I think it's going to become less about the hardware, about just the fact that they're everywhere, you know?
Ben, you just said you're going to be the crazy things you're going to be able to do with that in the future are going to be insane, which is exactly how you described the DualSense haptic feedback and the triggers and everything. It's just funny to me that every company now is doing their own thing and just a weird sort of different
Yeah.
path of this evolution towards what constitutes as next gen, right? Because
Yeah.
each one's working on something different. It's like it's no longer a parallel thing. Like everyone's just better graphics, more high resolution or whatever. So I don't know what that means for someone like Gage. So if you were to develop a game now, would you want the haptic feedback, or would you want a lower res so that it can be portable, or would you want it to run better on the cloud?
I just want to be able to make a fucking game from start to finish without getting distracted.
Let's end this podcast right now so you can get back to it.
That's all I want. Remote play,
Yeah.
Vita, boom. Fuck your
Oh, there
Switch.
is another.
No, but
another
that was a
movie.
serious question though, Gage. I'm really interested in, like, as a developer, what do you aim for? Which path are you gonna sort of evolve with and try to develop for?
What I'm more excited for, I think, for next generation is being able to push higher fidelity at more stable performance, because that's one of the things that's kind of a pain in the ass right now is, for me anyway, is building up something and it's like, this looks great, and it's not even like super crazy, but like it looks really good, and then testing it and it's like, this runs at fucking 45 frames per second. It's like, cool. If I run it and like if I try to make it for like the PS4 hardware, it's like, if I even want to hit 30 FPS, I have to drop everything. Like all these textures, I got to drop down to 1K resolution or 2K resolution. Like for me, it's just being able to say, here's my vision of the game, do a bit of optimizing and put it out, instead of, cool, I did all this and fuck, it doesn't run. So now I have to go through and, well, I got to remove all the triangle counts from this, so now the gun's got to be a bit more blocky. I got to get rid of that particle effect so the lighting's not going to be as good. The fucking volumetric fog has to go away. Like, that's the kind of shit that irritates me now, is because I'm trying to make stuff that looks good, because I care more about the visuals than the gameplay, which is not a good idea when you're trying to make a fucking game. But
you don't want Craig to feature in your
and
game,
also
do you?
the SSD, because right now, like, my file sizes for my projects are like 200 gigs each, because I have so many assets that I'm going through trying to find stuff that works. And if I put an asset in multiple places trying to run off of a hard drive, I don't want to have to start duplicating that asset. I want to be able to have it in this file. It's just right here. This rock exists once, instead of having to exist 50 times throughout my game world. So that way I don't have to take a 10 megabyte rock and have it take 150 megabytes. That's one of the things that I think is pretty cool about next gen.
But you're just talking about the PlayStation, though, Gage.
Yeah,
You can't do
that's
any
all
of
I care
that
about.
if you're a Okay, fair enough.
Just saying, like I give a shit about it. No, it's like, so that's just the experience I've had. I know it's cool with like the Nintendo Switch. I do hope they put out a new generation pretty soon, because I feel like a lot of the great games that come out on Switch, like they had a lot of good games like Doom and Wolfenstein 2, like AAA titles the current gen ported, but they had to scale them back so bad that they don't just look like bad, they look awful. Even in portable mode on the small screens, they look dramatically worse than their counterparts on like PlayStation. Like Skyrim looks decent, but like for them to have to do all of that work to scale it back just to make it work probably sucks a lot. As far as like game streaming goes, I just think game streaming should go away for like 10 more years, because the average internet connection is not stable enough to stream a game. Like, it's just, if you have really good internet, maybe you're good for a while, but you have to consider your Wi-Fi connection. Do you have a good enough router? Is it, who's your provider? Do you have Comcast? Do you have Charter? Cool. What happens when they go down for a week? And now this Game Pass that you pay for, because you only stream, you can't play your games now for a week. or games are so high fidelity. Like, that'd be the worst thing. Put all this time and money into Halo Infinite to make it look like the best game ever, and then to have the majority of your audience play it on xCloud, where it's streaming at 720p and it's heavily compressed. So,
But how's that any different than what? It's that's the path that Xbox is taking, or
Yeah.
Microsoft is taking. So they're just trying to have it be accessible in a different way because they don't know how to make it look like maybe Sony can.
it's just it's a weird environment. I think streaming is a very strange environment. There's a lot going on there where it's like, if you were designing a game just to stream, cool, but it's like, I feel sorry for those people that have to design for both, where it's like, we have to make our games look amazing that are running natively on a console, but that means all the people that are going to play it in xCloud, they're not going to get the same, they're not going to get the 60 FPS, they're not going to get the 4K, they're not going to get the good visuals. They can still play the game, which is cool. But, like, imagine someone who makes a small indie game that's not putting out a lot of data, like Undertale. You could probably stream Undertale in perfect quality at 60 FPS because there's, 5 colors that game uses? So there would be no compression or artifacting issues whatsoever. Like, if I was developing a game, I sure shit wouldn't want to put it on a streaming service. Not for a while. Because I feel like that would be a bad way to play it. Turn-based game, sure, maybe, but like a first-person shooter, even a remote play, it's running natively off my PS4 Pro, bouncing to my router and back to my Vita, and there's like a quarter of a second latency there. That's trash. Now imagine putting that on my fucking internet connection, where I get, on average, 200 milliseconds of ping. So now it has to bounce there and bounce back, and I'm getting almost a half a second delay. That would be awful. I would hate that.
I get it. I mean, we shit on people who talk about latency and like pro gamers or whatever, but you don't want latency in your game.
It makes a difference when you get to a certain extent. If you're like talking like 15 milliseconds, oh well, that's a TV. TVs have 10 to 20, but if it's like, if I'm making a first-person shooter game and it's a super fast-paced, and Xbox was like, we'll give you money to put it on xCloud, I'd be like, okay, but how can people play this game properly? Like, people are going to play this game with a half a second input latency and be like, why does this game suck? It's just kind of a weird... There's a lot that goes on when it comes to stuff like that. As far as development for it goes...
You raise really good points, because obviously one person we haven't talked about in regards to next gen, that was meant to be kind of the first next gen console, was, well, not console, but Stadia, obviously touting the fact that they were going to be the most powerful console on the market that you could just stream from. But like,
they
obviously, I mean, how's everyone feeling about that? What's the future of Stadia look like? That was, like I said, meant to be the very first big.
Google's going to give up soon enough, aren't they?
I think so. That's the advantage Xbox has, is they have a marketplace for it. They have Game Pass where they can just go, there's already over 100 games on here, you're already paying for Game Pass, like, you get it. Whereas Stadia, it's like, this is it. We provide you with nothing else. You have to pay for just this service, where it's like, if I have Game Pass, I could download a game on my Xbox One X and play it on my 4K TV and have it be the best experience. And then I could easily just grab my shitty $200 laptop, go on a road trip, and just bring my controller, and I can still stream those same games. So I have that option.
I mean, if they can't make it successful in a global pandemic when everyone's at home wanting to do stuff, like, it's not going to happen for them, right?
I don't think so. Honestly, I haven't believed in Stadia since they announced it. I thought it was going to be a bullshit thing, and sure enough, it turns out that it's like, nobody cares about Stadia. People are stoked as hell for xCloud because it's bundled in with Game Pass, but people don't want to pay for, well, I paid $15 a month for Stadia. It's kind of cool. There's compression issues. There's lag. Like, they add, a handful of games, like, oh, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Cool. What if I'm a first-person shooter fan? How am I supposed to play Doom on Stadia? I would be dying left and right. Like, you can't tout a streaming service to be like, oh, come play our first-person shooter games. Like, can I download it? Can I run it natively on something? No? Well, then why the fuck would I do that? And Microsoft,
I think the thing that worries me the most as well is that they're not even getting games, dude. Like,
Yeah, right.
Like if they'd actually managed to sort their stuff out, and if they had, very little latency, if they had games, if they did a sort of Games Pass service, I'd definitely try it out. If it's
Yeah,
$10 a month and you could like try from like 10 different like decent games, I'd totally do
yeah. If they
that.
had a bunch of
Give it a go.
content, it would be better. But it just seems like they're not providing enough of a value for their service as Microsoft is, or even PlayStation. With PlayStation Now, they don't really advertise it like they should, but it's like
Yeah.
PlayStation Now, you can stream a vast library of games on PC or PS4, where I can be on my PC and I can stream PS3 and PS4 games. God of War, Metal Gear Solid 4, I think is streamable. Or for the PS4 games, most of them are downloadable. So if I pay $15 a month for PS Now, I can download a massive list of PlayStation 4 games and play them with a subscription. Like
All PS4 games are downloadable.
all of them. Yeah.
I wish it extended to PS3 because I
So
played
yeah, if
Red Dead
dude,
Redemption on it, and it was not like the latency came into that.
dude,
Hopefully one
Xbox
day
One
they
X
bring
runs Red
PS3.
Dead 1 at native 4K. It's really nice. Really nice. But like PS Now they're not advertising that like they should, because that's an awesome service, being able to do that. And Xbox is actually like, hey, you can also stream all these other games too and stuff like that. And Stadia is like, we have 5 games, help us.
I mean, Microsoft's clearly going to be the one to crack it, right? Like they're pretty confident, and it's launching in August, right? Is it? No, not August. It's later this year, right? They're launching it.
Yeah, I know it's in beta right now.
Yeah,
I don't
everyone
know.
seems to love it.
I don't trust Microsoft to launch anything at this point. Like, they haven't had
They
a
keep
successful
pushing it out,
launch
which-
of anything since the original Xbox. Like, when it comes to hardware or software, nothing has worked for them since the original Xbox.
What about
So-
the
But
360?
they are beta testing it a lot. They're
Most of the
just-
launch 360s had overheating issues because they rushed production of them and basically used cheap components. So, like, the first generation of 360s, like the first, I think it was like 3 months of production, all of those consoles basically red ringed within like a month, because they made
Wow.
there's a crazy, I don't know if a No Clip did it or what, but there's a crazy documentary on that, and it's sad. They basically were like, just make them, just put them out, like, we don't give a shit, and all those died. They had like a free thing, so if you just emailed them or mailed it in or whatever and said, hey, this happened, they would cover it for free, which was cool. They took care of their customers. But yeah, like, that whole launch of the 360 was a disgrace. Not as bad as paying $600 for a PlayStation 3 at launch, because that is stupid. But yeah. And then obviously Xbox One, because everybody wanted a new VCR. I know I did. Yeah. And then like the Xbox One X launched, and a lot of the first generation Xbox One X's had Wi-Fi card issues apparently. And then now Series X, it's like, hey, we don't have Halo anymore. It's like, shit. So maybe this will be it. Maybe xCloud will be the first time they actually launch something that's like day one. Well, I mean, it's not going to be because Apple fucked them, but aside from that, it could be a really big thing if it hits the way it's supposed to.
Gage, what about paying £600, but you get Ridge Racer? Ridge Racer.
Not to offend anybody, but I don't think anybody's cared about Ridge Racer since the 90s.
Cool.
Like,
That's
it's a
Gage.
fine franchise, but like, even playing Ridge Racer on PS1, it's like, I'd rather play Gran Turismo or NASCAR at this point, or anything else, because this is boring.
Thanks, Gage.
Yeah.
Someone out there named their kid Ridge Racer, and they're screaming at this right now, but they're screaming. I did like El's
Probably
point
Kaz
about
himself.
how all these companies
Right.
are doing something incredibly different, which is probably it's so cool though, that to think like, what are these companies going to look like in 5 years? Like, they're all going in just such vastly different kind of areas. Like, obviously Switch going more portable route, PlayStation just really pushing the hardware, the specs, Microsoft going a lot more, cloud based and really pushing that and trying to get out everywhere. Like, it's going to be super fascinating.
I
And
do
five
hope one of the
years.
two companies try to rival what Nintendo are doing with the Switch, because, man, there's so many games on PlayStation 4 where it would just suit being portable. A lot of JRPGs, they would just suit being on a Vita, for example. I'm never going to get.
Oh, they're clearly working on cloud-based systems, though, aren't they? Like obviously trying to improve that with the Xbox servers. They obviously did that deal. Was it last year, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, actually, you're right. So I don't think Xbox are going to bother making something like the Switch, are they? Because they've got xCloud and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think PlayStation will just probably go in that similar sort of direction where you can hopefully just play your games where you want.
What was this
Yeah.
about them using Microsoft servers? Was it Azure or something?
Yeah, I think they're just using the servers to help their cloud-based platform, right, Gage? Is that what it was?
I don't know. I don't pay attention to cloud-based stuff.
Dude, I thought
fair
you were the expert. You love clouds.
I only focus on real gaming.
We've got Billy's Door engage the cloud. Fantastic. Oh,
Yeah,
that's been an interesting topic. I wonder if we're gonna get some prices this month.
I just want to take
I
a
hope
moment
so.
here. The whole rant I went on after Al asked me that question. To be honest, Al, I didn't hear what you asked, and so I was just going off, hoping I would make it there at some point, and I just realized I didn't. So what the hell was your question that I went on about for 20 fucking minutes about nothing?
I have no idea.
I was
How would
like,
I remember
I was
that?
like,
I don't know.
I feel like I heard it, so I know it's gonna come back to me. So I'm just gonna keep going about stuff and hope it gets there. And I don't
It
think
worked.
it did.
Whatever you did worked.
Okay.
I think Al's
I
just given up.
just
hope
don't
on
want
Next
somebody
Generation.
to rewatch this and get halfway through and be like, he just ignored the question and deflected it like that Insomniac dev.
I love it. I don't not have faith in next gen. It's just very different, and it's not the same as it was before. Like everyone's doing something different, and the fact that we had those mid-gen incremental upgrades, and then like I don't know. It seems like it's too soon, but I don't know.
I think that's the thing with all of them at the moment, right? You don't. Same with Xbox, same with PlayStation. I think if you're happy with who you are, there's no huge incentive to jump at this point, right?
Yeah,
like I
nothing
say, for the
major.
most part, I could wait, 5 years for another one, and I'd be perfectly fine with what I've got at the moment. So I'm kind of with you in the sense, Al, that if it wasn't here, I wouldn't really care too much. I'd be happy playing with what I've got. I'll probably get one still at launch, but also, do you think it might be because obviously you're not a huge Horizon fan, and that's kind of the first big game on the horizon that we can, excuse the pun there, first big one coming out for PlayStation next gen? Is that possibly because obviously, like any console, it's all about the games, and that's the first big one coming out that for me gets me super hyped because I love the first Horizon. Is that maybe it? Is it maybe that you just want to see what the games you're personally excited about, you want to see what they look like next gen, and that hasn't happened yet?
Maybe, but I'll ask you this. If Horizon 2 was coming out on the PS4 and they didn't force you and twist your arm into getting a PS5 to play it, would you get a PS5?
Probably no. If like say, if PS5 wasn't a thing and we're getting Horizon 2 on PS4, I'd be fine with it. I'd still probably want to see them push the tech as far as they can. I'm always down to. I kind of like these sequels where you kind of get one really good one that gen and they focus on another really good sequel for the next gen. I kind of like seeing developers push their boundaries. I don't kind of like sequels that are too close to each other because I feel like they're just almost too samey. It's kind of the same thing again. But yeah, if Horizon 2 came out on PS4 right now and we didn't know that PS5 was going to be a thing, I'd still be down to play it. I'd still be super excited about it. Not probably as much as it coming to PS5, but you're probably right there. Like, so I don't think there's any huge need for next gen right now. I think it's just more, hey, look, do you want to play your games that are currently out at the moment that look slightly better, and maybe check out these new games that are coming exclusively to it. But if none of those new exclusive games appeal to you, I can definitely see there's no probably reason to even get one at launch unless you want your current games
Right.
to look slightly better. Also, it's the thing that's also maybe the thing that makes me less excited is all this random stuff about these upgrade programs. Like, I mean, for me, I was super excited to hold up. I bought Control at launch, never got around to playing it. That was going to be my first big next-gen game that I was going to upgrade and actually play on my PS5 with the ray tracing and see what that looks like. But the fact that there's so many weird, crazy practices with these upgrades, I mean, I'm happy to pay for an upgrade to go to a next-gen platform, but if it's not offered or if you have to pay for weird deluxe editions to get it, that's the one thing that kind of really puts me off, because one thing about the next gen is just that I can play my current systems but they look better. That's the thing initially that I think most people are excited about until the games actually come that are exclusive. So
You're
how do you
absolutely I was just gonna say you're not wrong. Control is a perfect game to wait and spruce up with being able to run it on the next gen. But
It has been 3 days and they still haven't addressed the controversy. And something else I
I
forgot to
think
point
you
out.
addressed it.
They haven't said anything about it. Even after 3 days, they haven't said anything about it. Another thing that I just looked through the comments, I didn't realize this. So I know they had some sort of exclusivity with PlayStation. It was for the expansion pass. Apparently the expansion pass wasn't available to Xbox owners until last month. A month. They just got the expansion pass and a month later are told to go fuck themselves when it comes to the upgrade. That is
Blimey.
awful. That's even worse than I thought it was. That's ridiculous.
I mean,
You know when
reading,
Gage is
reading
defending
into
you.
it, they haven't announced it, but it kind of sounds like with the control upgrade, they haven't said that you can't pay a small fee to upgrade, right? They're just saying if you want the free upgrade, you
That's
have
the
to
thing,
get
though.
They're not saying.
No.
Either nobody
They-
should have to pay
they
for it or
have said-
everybody should have to pay for it. Not me as an $80 or $85 after the deluxe edition and season pass have to pay another $10, but people come in at $40 don't have to pay. Like that was the issue that we were trying to get to is like either make everybody pay for an upgrade or nobody pay. Like there should not be a split in the fan base depending on when you like it's weird. It's really weird, but yeah. All that on the previous episode of the Sasscast.
Someone said, why not just make it that it's free for everyone that buys the DLC? Like, because I'd be happy with that.
Clearly, you didn't watch the last episode, Ben, because we answered all of these questions. So thanks for
Awesome.
supporting your friends.
You're welcome, buddy. You're welcome.
But no,
It's in the queue.
Colleagues.
It's in the queue.
yeah, colleagues. Sorry, Mario's not here,
Acquaintances.
so friends was the wrong word to use. But no, we went over all this stuff in the previous episode. So if you haven't watched that one, but you're watching this, hi, I don't know why you're here. Go watch the previous episode. It's actually way better because we're actually talking about an actual news story that may or may not be total bullshit based on the words of a proclaimed Insomniac developer. So yeah, gotta love that. Anybody else got anything to talk about when it comes to next gen or game upgrades or what you had for dinner last night?
I'm just excited for next generation, and I think if we had the choice of, playing on the PlayStation 5 and playing on the PlayStation 4, I'd probably just go with the PlayStation 5 every single time. It's the reason why I bought a Pro. I knew I wasn't going to get too much out of it, but I was going to get a little bit more out of it, and I was more than happy to support that. So
I don't think I'd necessarily be a PS5 day one adopter if it didn't mean that my games wouldn't sound like a jet engine. So I can just play all my current PS4 games and I don't have to worry about them being so loud, like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Warzone or any like modern game. They are so goddamn loud that I have to crank up my sound system. And just the thought of having the power of the PS5 that's going to run those games and be so quiet, that's almost enough for me to pay $500 on a console day one. Yeah.
aren't
You've
you
been
a
through a
console
lot, haven't you?
What's up, Al?
Aren't you a console gamer because, well, partly because you don't want to have to worry about those issues?
Hey, that's a
Say
single...
if you were playing on PC.
If I'm playing on PC, my processor costs almost as much as a PlayStation 5. So I'm cool paying $500 for a console where I literally just have to set it up and I can play, like, I just have my hard drive external with all my PS4 games and they just work. I don't have to worry about, hey, I want to play some Grand Theft Auto 5 today. Let me go to Steam. Launch. Cool. It's launching the Rockstar Games launcher. Okay, now that's up. Cool. Launch Grand Theft Auto 5. Okay, now here comes the Grand Theft Auto 5 launcher. Okay, now it finally loads the game. Wait a minute. Do you want to play online or single player? It's like, single player. Okay, we'll load the single player. Console, you just hit Grand Theft Auto 5. It just launches. It just works. Okay? I don't have to worry about every 3 days. It's like, oh, update and shut down Windows 10. It's like, how? What are you updating?
How is that not describing what's going on with your PS4 Pro when you boot up Call of Duty?
Well, because Call of Duty is a shit game. We're not talking about game updates. I'm talking about like hardware updates. Shit does it in rest mode. I wake up in the morning, it's like updated to version 7.7. What did it add? Oh, system stability improvements. Cool, I don't have to worry about it. And it's like my PC, it's like, okay, I gotta boot up Steam. Well, no, I want to play Mercenaries, so now I gotta boot up Origin. well, I want to play Far Cry 3, so it's like I gotta boot up Ubisoft Club. It's like, just let me plug and play. Like, I don't want to deal with that shit right now. Or like every time a new game comes out, it's like, we got all these new features. You have to update your graphics card. Okay, that takes 5 minutes because the goddamn NVIDIA launcher takes forever to load. Or it's like, oh, you want these new things? You gotta buy a new graphics card. And it's like, cool, the new graphics card's $1,000. No, I'm not doing that shit. When $500, boom, all my current stuff's gonna run better, run quieter, plus I get all the new shit for the next 7 years. Works for me.
Did you get 7 years out of your Pro?
No, PS4 generation on its own, yes. So if the PlayStation 5 is it, then theoretically 7 years. They come out with the PlayStation 5 Pro at that point. I don't think I need it because, like, what would it do? Like, oh, native 8K at 60 frames per second for games. Like, well, no. Like, my TV's 4K. That's... At this point, I don't see a Pro in the future for the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X because they're already so powerful that at this point, the only real benefits would be, like, the ray tracing looks a bit better. It's like, well... But I already have ray tracing now, whereas, like, going from a 1080p to a 4K TV, yeah, that was a big jump because 1080p games look like trash on my 4K TV. But that's like, I'm not going to buy an 8K TV, so I wouldn't need to upgrade.
I hope that's true. I hope we don't get another upgrade.
I mean, there's rumors they're going to do upgradable specs, though. Like, that's one of the rumors is that they're going to just release, like, in a few years, like, hey, you can send in your PlayStation 5 or whatever, and they'll put in the new GPU that's got a higher clock rate or something. Yeah.
You don't see how we're just becoming PC Master Race people.
Yeah, that's the problem. I hope that doesn't happen because let me buy something that's
all
good
I was trying to bring up. I thought we wanted it to be easier. I thought that's why we deal with all the bullshit of consoles because it's without the hassle of upgrading your PC.
I don't see upgrading a console like that drastic as that big of a issue. Whereas it's
not,
because it's like you buy it, you're good to go. Whereas like a PC, if you have a good enough PC, you're not just gonna buy a new PC. You're gonna upgrade what you need to upgrade. So it's like, cool, I just need more RAM. Here's $120 for more RAM. Or great, a month later, it's like, I need a new CPU, or I need a new cooler for it. I want to buy a new case. That's the problem with PCs. Is like, I spent too much money on RGB shit because it looks cool. It does nothing for me, except for throttle my processor speeds because it needs the fucking Corsair app to be running at all times.
And you get upvotes on Reddit as well.
But like the PlayStation, it's just like I just buy it, it's done. It's just I don't have to worry about. It's just there. Games are already optimized. I don't have to boot a game and go in. Like I can go, cool. Do I want 60 FPS or do I want better ray tracing? That's it. That's two options. I'm good to go. Instead of PC where it's like, well, okay, let's do 1440p, or actually let me cut that down and let me use NVIDIA's DLSS 2.0 to give me a better resolution but save frames. Shadow quality, do I want ultra or do I want very ultra? Let's do just ultra. I don't need to save performance. Texture quality, do I want high or very high? Well, not a huge difference. I could get the 4K textures, but they don't look as good up close as the 8K. So I'm going to do the 8K textures. Well, now my performance is tanking because this one part in the game has 8K textures that are layered everywhere that no other part in the game has. So I have to go to my options menu and do this. Like, I just want to be able to boot up a fucking game and say, do you want the frame rate or the resolution? Frame rate or resolution. And then, boom, game works, optimized, fun, yay. Not every single goddamn time I boot up Steam and it's like, okay, there's a Steam update and there's a game update, so I do that, boot up the game.
I haven't had a Steam update in years, though, Gage. I mean, let's not.
Dude, there was one like a week ago. What the hell are you smoking?
Nah. Get an SSD in your computer.
Don't need to update Steam if you don't use it.
Oh,
I have an SSD, dude. I got a freaking M.2 in this bitch.
Great.
And two SATA drives.
Oh, the best drive.
I don't run no hard drive shit, dude. I haven't upgraded my PS4 Pro to an SSD.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jesus.
I even bought an external one for my Xbox One X. I ain't playing no hard drive shit. You kidding me?
On that note, we'll be talking about the I don't know, Gage's hardware setup or whatever.
I'm just gonna go off and rant about shit that literally nobody cares about, which is why we don't get views. I start talking, they're like, nah.
Do you know what? I do appreciate that. I at least get to hear all the random shit in the world from you.
Like, I hope it's at
Makes
least
my life
humorous.
a lot more
If it can't
better.
be educational, I hope it's at least humorous.
It's a bit of both, I'd say.
Oh,
It's
that's
like you're
good
the
to
kind
hear.
of teacher that I wish I had at school.
Man,
Yeah, I learned something today.
if I was a teacher, that'd be fucking great, dude. I'd be like, okay, today they want me to teach a division. Anybody here have a smartphone? Yes? Get the fuck out of my class. You know division. There you go.
Oh, shit.
I love. You don't know when you're gonna need division, and it's like, I got a calculator in my pocket. Turns out y'all didn't do your jobs, so
Tell that to Ubisoft.
now there's something we could talk about. Hey, don't harass people. Just saying. I don't care who the fuck you are. Oh God, now Robin is trying to cancel me because I didn't fucking talk about Nier.
We'll
Sorry.
talk about Nier.
I don't talk about sevens,
Nearest at
okay?
the time? Close to the time? I don't know. I tried to make a pun out of that. It didn't work.
Nier's a good 7 out of 10. Not a bad game.
Is Nier the robot woman?
Yes,
That's her name, Nier. Right,
It's-
got it.
sure. It's a fun game for a couple hours. And then you realize, cool, I'm going to play it again. And Robin's like, no, it's a different ending. It's like, dude, okay, the first half of the game's the exact same. You're just playing as a different character. Then there's a point where you break off and you play a different part of the game. But it's like, I already played the first half. I don't want to play this again. I don't. I spent all this time leveling up 2B, and now I got to play as 9S. You kidding me? I got to restart and level this little prick up? This little blindfold wearing, please, sir, can I have some more looking motherfucker? No, I'm not going to do that shit.
On that note,
He also hates Blade Runner, so that's why I shit on Nier, because he likes Nier and doesn't like Blade Runner, so.
I'm not going down that route. I'm signing out.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. We've been going for an hour and a half, and I feel like at this point it's just me raging at everything like I always do.
Yeah, I'm trying to escape the Pokemon rage, so let's
Don't even get me started on... No, I'm kidding. Anybody else have any final closing thoughts, again, about anything? Anything happy?
Well, we've managed to go for 7 weeks now, which is always good. And we
That's
had
good.
4 people on today, and Ben turned up, which is like a miracle.
I know.
So yeah, plenty of reason to be happy.
This is Ben's debut on the podcast. This was not mentioned today.
Main podcast, yes. He's
Main
been on the
podcast.
side podcast before.
I'm aware.
So it's about...
He's only got one more
Podcast.
podcast to feature on until he's actually been on more Sasscasts
Like-
than other people's podcasts. But hey,
I think we can all agree the only reason Ben came on today is because I keep talking shit about him not being on our podcast. That's the only reason he showed up.
do you know what? I didn't think of it like that, but now you might be right.
So there's one closing
And-
segment I want to get into.
First
Al-
and last.
Yeah, right? Al, you have this segment that we should really start doing regularly where you pick an obscure game and you try to stump me to see if I've heard of it or not.
Mhm.
So I know you said you had one. Let's hear it.
Are you aware of MDK?
Donkey Kong. Sorry.
It sounds familiar, but I can't place it.
It's by Shiny Entertainment. Does that ring a bell?
Nope.
The developers of Earthworm Jim.
I
And
know
it had a
what
sequel.
I know
and
what-
it was out on PC. It
I know
was
what
a
Earthworm
pretty
Jim
good game.
is, but yeah.
Go check it out. MDK. You will probably won't be able to play it anywhere, but just look it up. It's a fun
For bonus
little...
points, do you know what MDK stands for? Gage.
No, I have no idea.
My Dog Kentucky. That's what it stands for. It's a dog simulator where you just play the dog.
1997 third-person shooter.
It's a great
Oh,
game, and so is the
I must
sequel.
have thinking of a different one.
So nobody on here knows that game. It's not just Gage.
I've heard
No.
of it and visualized it, but yeah, I never played it.
It's got a PlayStation
It's
port. I'm in.
something.
I
How
played
about
MK
you talk?
MK.
Close enough.
Let me try to find it on Amazon. I want to see how much it costs.
An extension to this segment would be maybe go get that obscure game and just do an hour and let us know what you think.
if I had money to do that weekly, I would totally do it.
That's why we're gonna be on Patreon very soon.
Oh, bloody hell.
No, that was a joke.
Damn it!
Or is it?
We should get a Patreon. We deserve it. We make good content.
I can't wait for all our mums to subscribe to our Patreon.
I know, right? Ooh, I get a good copy of it for $25.
There you go.
Go get it, Gage.
It's not bad.
I will be doing
a lot of
a
fun.
surprise in my own sort of streams with a member of Simply Sassy and a retro game, but I'm going to keep those details to myself until nearer the time. So
Thanks for sharing that, Kumail.
I haven't
No
received a
worries.
request yet, so what's going on?
And I can reveal it's not Ben. So
Oh,
Thank goodness. All right, so where can everybody find you guys?
I'll go first if you don't mind. I do a Pokemon podcast every Sunday, 7:30 p.m. British Summer Time, 2:30 Eastern Time, and 11:30 Pacific Time.
British semi-time?
Summertime, sorry.
Summertime, okay. That's
Yeah,
not any
I've always
better.
got a semi. Nice. Yes, I do a Pokemon podcast at twitch.tv/KumailH, KUMAILH. You can find me on
So what was
Twitter as
that?
well at
H?
KumailH. H. for
H?
Hotel.
H.
H? H? H?
Thanks.
are you Australian?
H.
H.
God damn it. It's the worst part about Digital Foundry is some of them are British and they're like, oh, I love the HDR. I'm like, you bastard. God damn it.
At least
You and
the
your
pronunciation of the
your-
letter in the beginning of the name.
Listen, fucker, we made the language. I'll decide the rules here.
The last letters of the alphabet, X, Y, and Z. Oh, yeah, go put U's in more words. Color. Humor. Honor. It's like, bro, you don't need a U. You don't need a U, okay?
And we don't need you either, so get out of here.
Oh! Finally! 7 weeks and Kumail finally makes a good joke.
It
Ben.
get there eventually. Yeah.
Ben, where can people find you?
Apparently you can't find me on Kumail's podcast.
Hey, I haven't been invited either. So he's been on every episode of my podcast, but he won't invite me on
Neither
his.
have
So.
I.
No, I need to get this next part right. Okay, you can find me as well as many others at Simply Sassy Vids for all your sassy content. Okay, I want to make it very clear. Simply Sassy Vids on Twitter is where you can find us. Okay. Also,
Good save. Good save.
Also, at Please Be Excited on Twitter for all your horrifying Photoshop needs, and twitch.tv/Please Be Excited for ridiculous, crazy content. We're doing a birthday stream coming up. It's going to be a good time.
I'll be on
Nice.
that birthday stream.
Well, you know.
Is Mario gonna be there?
Hopefully. No.
Damn. Let's see how it is. Cool. Al, where can people find you?
You can help support me at pbxmerch.com.
Yes.
That's where you'll get all your needs of all different sorts of needs. And but yeah, simplysassyvids.com also works.
Yep. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Twitter at simplysassyvids.com. You got at Al Tribesman, at Kumail H, and at I'm a traitorous hobbit. And at GF2Cool for me. If you have any topics or
Wow,
discussion you want us to go over, go ahead and let us know in the comments or on Twitter. Or if you just want to talk shit, I'm happy to mute you. All right. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.